Hi, review. I'm Pastor Malcolm,
And I'm Alicia.
and we're excited to be here. As you can see our background, it's the season to be
Woo-woo!
jolly.
Yes, I'm very
Yes.
excited.
I would say on the level 1 to 10, how are you excited? How much excited are you?
Probably about a 20.
Oh wow! Is
We
it
get to
just?
go and have hopefully a white Christmas this
Yeah, I
year.
was about to say. I think it's because you have some special stuff coming up, so
I do.
it
I
definitely adds to it.
yes.
I mean, I'm pretty happy too. I don't think I'm at a 20, but I'm pretty happy. Things are going pretty good, and it's gonna be a good Christmas like always. So, and I have some plans after Christmas. So, yeah.
There you That'll be fun.
um, Today, with we're talking about Christmas and just the holiday season and stuff. We want to talk about being generous and generosity, and we thought this would be a good time because this is the season people give and stuff. And um, I think we, on one hand, I mean, it's something we have to learn about. We need to talk about. It's one thing you need to look at and see, why you're giving.
Right.
Um, and so it's just a lot of things you can look at when it comes to generosity. And so we're just going to look at some of the stuff. Um, what's the first thing that comes to your mind when you hear that?
The first thing I think that comes to my mind whenever I hear the word generosity is helping those in need.
Hmm. Yeah, that's definitely. I definitely think that that should be. I think a lot of times when we talk about generosity and being generous, a lot of times it goes straight to finances,
Right.
and that is not the only way you can be generous. There's
Mhm.
other ways you can be generous, and we'll talk about that. But I think we're talking about the higher view, right? This is why we do this, and so I want us to get to a place where when we do here, we don't just think finances, money. It's the other stuff also, and so um, I love your response, and I wasn't planned, so.
Oh, this is
Uh,
the truth. That's the first thing that comes to my mind.
yeah, so that's pretty cool. But and I some of the like I was looking at some of the definitions and stuff, and a lot of it comes like the different words from the Greek or Hebrew. There's different things, different places in the Bible, and a lot of it translates to being kind,
Mm,
um, being free of pretense, uh, helping out. It says having pity upon someone or showing favor. There's different things, and I think the key one right there about free of pretense, I think that's one that we definitely got
yeah,
to highlight
definitely.
because if, especially like I said, this is the season, it's like, oh well, I'm gonna go give all these toys to this toy drive so I can look good and I can get
Right,
on the news. um, that's not being generous. That's
right.
manipulative. That's boasting, and that's all you're gonna get out of it. You're not gonna get the rewards from God where He's pleased. Um, Later, we're gonna read in Second Corinthians. It says God loves a chill forgiver, and it's like He loves when we give, and it's like I want to be a part of what God loves.
Yeah.
And so, but it starts with our heart, and it's like where's your heart at when you're giving what you're doing. And one of the definitions I saw somebody say, the way that they describe it is not having a tight fist, and it's
Mm,
like not just holding on to things so tight that you won't give. And so the free of pretense goes directly back to our heart.
yeah, I've seen those things on social media where it's like, you don't have to, I challenge you to do something nice for someone without posting about it on social media. And it's
Yeah.
like, that's so true because, we want social media is sharing your life with
Yeah.
people. And it's like, you know what? Why don't you do something that you're not, going to go and boast about or whatever?
Mhm.
And it's very interesting whenever you actually look at it that way and be like, oh, wow, what was, my real motivation for that? Was it really to be generous, or was it just to get the likes and the attaboys type of thing? So,
Yeah, and I was thinking about this, and I was going to do offering. And I was bringing up some different things that we done, me and Bianca, and she was like, don't share that. And
yeah,
it's like, and you think about it, it's like, yeah, I don't want to share some stuff because
right,
then people are going to think, oh, you're trying to just boast. And it's like,
right,
you should kind of be able to share, like, especially because we're teaching, we're trying to teach
right.
um people. We're trying to, I'm teaching this in youth right now for the next couple of weeks about being generous. We have to teach our kids how to be generous.
Yeah.
I was telling them, like, Jordan, he's 2, and he does not like to share. He wants his stuff, and he'll come and ask for yours, but don't come
Right,
get his. And he is but then also there is times he comes and shares, so he's not just like.
right.
But it's something
But
that
he's
we
true.
have to continue to teach him to grow
Yeah.
into it. um and so um you can talk about it some, but we're, like you said, we're living in a culture and society that just wants to boast about all this stuff.
Mhm.
But a lot of times their boasting is just for, their own ego and pride.
Yeah.
And so people, give them likes and follows or whatever. And that's all you're going to get. And we know that it doesn't translate to the kingdom. It doesn't translate to
Right.
heaven. And it doesn't translate to God being able to multiply what you did. And so you did something cool. It ends there, and God wants to multiply when we're generous. And so, um, we first have to start out with is God is generous,
Mhm.
and I never looked at it this way until I was studying. And Adam and Eve, God made Adam and Eve in His image. There's angels who are not human. Angels are angels, and the
Right.
Bible talks about creatures and stuff in heaven or whatever, like they're that. And there's animals and stuff, but like, we are made in God's image. Like, God didn't have to do that. He's already created other stuff. He didn't have to do that. And then after He made us in image, He gave us, the earth. He made, the garden perfect for them. Everything was great. And then sin broke, um you know that what God had said. And so there was that separation. And in that, He's like, man, because you didn't listen, like, you brought,
Right.
destruction to the earth, sickness and all this. um but I'm gonna send my son. And it's just so cool because right away He's like, I'm sending the best thing ever. The
Yeah.
greatest thing I can send is my son, and I'm bringing it to you. I'm gonna send it to y'all. And so it just shows, like, right away, like, God is so generous.
Yes. Yeah, he is. When you think about it, it's like God gave Adam and Eve everything they could have ever imagined, more than they could have imagined. It was perfect in the Garden of Eden. And then, they screwed up and sin entered the world. And then, he still gave us everything that we could need through Jesus. It's just like, God, he is so generous, and he's generous with his love. I mean, he is just a generous God, and he's a great example, for what we should strive to do.
Yeah, and we're talking about Adam and Eve, but I can tell you I've blown it, and God has been generous and fixing my mistakes and covering up for me when He
Yeah.
could have been like, I told you.
Yep.
Now, and
Exactly.
I'm just so thankful for the kind of God we serve. And
Me too.
Ephesians talks about He's given us every spiritual blessing in, heavenly
Mhm.
places. Like,
Yes.
He sent His son. He's given us,
Yeah.
His word and these promises that you can stand on. Like, He's just given us so much. And
Mhm.
He just asks us for a relationship with Him. And it's
Yeah.
just so cool that, like, He's so generous, and all He asks us back is, hey, I would like to have a relationship with you. It's like that's the least we could do, right? Like,
Right. No kidding. It's
yeah,
like, yes.
yeah. And so, so in that, so since God's generous and we're Christians, we're like Christ, we become generous, and
Right.
it's in us, but um we have to choose if we're going to do it or not. And God doesn't make us do anything. And there was a couple cool scriptures I saw. If you read Exodus 35, it's so long. And so I
God
was
bless
reading
you
it.
if you read it.
Alicia had to listen to me read it earlier, and so I won't make y'all do that. But read Exodus 35, and it says that Moses said to the whole community of Israel, "This is what the Lord commands: take your sacrifices and offering to the Lord. Let those with generous hearts present the following gifts to the Lord." And it just lists like all these gifts. It talks about gold, silver, rams, oxen. It just gives you this whole list of stuff. And when Moses got done, it says the whole community of Israel left Moses and returned to their tents. All whose hearts were stirred and whose spirits were moved came and brought their sacrifices to the Lord. They brought all the materials needed for the tabernacle. And it just goes on and talks about how their hearts, the ones who hearts were willing, they just brought the stuff. And so God is like, hey, like, this is going to be the temple. This is where I'm going to be at.
Right.
And, so Moses tells them, hey, this is what we need. And the people go back to the tents and they bring all the stuff, well, some of the people, it says, those
Those
who hearts. And so it kind of showed that there was people who they're part of God, they're in God's family, but their hearts were just closed off and they didn't do it. But a lot of people decided, hey, I'm going to bring this stuff to the Lord. And so we can build a tabernacle. And it's like, it kind of seemed like, duh, like I should do this, like
right.
once again, back to he's so generous. So like
Yes.
I should be, look at his example. If we're
Yeah.
going to be like Christ, I'm going to look at his example and, be generous also.
Yeah. Because when you see how good God is and how generous he is, and it's like, how could you not?
Mhm.
This is the least you could do to say thank you for all of the things that we even know about.
Yeah.
I'm sure there's countless things that he's done for us that we have no clue about and won't know about until we get
Yeah.
to heaven, and so it's just like, how could you not do this for such an amazing God? So, yeah.
And I think right now we're talking I was reading this list and it's bringing all this stuff, but they also brought their talents
Mhm.
and their time,
Right.
and you can be generous with those things also.
Yes.
Once we started at the beginning and we said that it's not all about money,
Yep.
what you're doing, are you being generous with your time and your
Yep.
talents? um I think I was telling you, Alicia, a while back how um I'm just seeing these pastors who they won't speak unless they're getting paid, or musicians, they won't play unless they're getting paid.
Yep.
And it's like, man, you've taken that talent that God has given you, and now you've just turned it into a money maker for you. And you're using, oh, well, this is my job. And so I have to, protect it or whatever. People, they make all these excuses up, and not saying, pastors shouldn't be paid or musicians can't be paid. That's not what we're talking about. But the heart of, I'm not going to preach the gospel not
Right.
unless I'm getting paid. And it's like God freely gave, and so we supposed to freely gave. God first loved us, and so then we love. It's we have it backwards, and there's a group of people who has it
Right.
backwards that
Right.
it just shouldn't be like that. And I'll leave it at that and not go anymore. But
Yeah. There's a time and a place, and just make sure you're following the Holy Spirit. There
yeah,
we go.
yeah. So anyways, bringing your talents, you can be generous. I was preaching to the youth and they're like, well, I don't have a job, but I did this and this, and um I was like, yeah, that's still being generous, that's
Right.
still being kind. And it's not about, and then it's not about the amount. One of the girls said that she brought her friend something that she really wanted. It was $3. And I was like, you don't have a job. I know, like,
Right.
it's like, oh, well, $3 not a lot, but you don't
Right.
have much more to go get, and so it adds up,
Yeah.
you start subtracting, and so it's not about the dollar amount, but it's about the heart in it. And so um and when we're generous to other people, it just points back to God,
Yeah.
because when we're doing it the right way, it's, hey, they're like, oh, thank you, people get blessed, all this. And it's like, hey, God gave it to me, so I'm just giving it to you.
Yeah.
And I talked about one of the definitions was being a tight fist. And it's like, I'm not going to just hold on to my money, or my house, my cars, or whatever, because God gave it to me in the first place. Like, we're so blessed to have this house. Like, we got such a good deal on it. Like, and it was like what we were looking for. We couldn't find, other stuff. And it's like, but now it's like, oh no, God, I'm not gonna host a Bible study. Like, what? Like, I just want to, do my own thing. And so
Right.
we have to be careful about holding on to these things. And you talked about seed, holding on
Yeah.
to our seed and not, being generous with it. And it's not going to come back to us if we don't.
Right. Like Pastor Mark gave a good example on Sunday about there could be a farm, say I'm a farmer and I have all this land and I look out at this land, it's perfect farmland. And you're just like, man, that would make such an awesome corn crop. I can't wait to taste that delicious corn. It's going to be amazing, blah, 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 blah. And then a month goes by and you look out at that field and you're like, why isn't the corn growing? And another month goes by and you look out at the crop and you're like, I still don't see any corn. You go up, you look at the dirt, there's no corn. You got to plant
Yeah.
seeds to get the corn. It's simple, 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 but it's a good analogy of, we have to plant the seed of that. And, seeds, one of the seeds that you can use are your words, your time,
Yeah.
your money, whatever, but you've got to start planting those seeds to be able to see the harvest eventually. So,
Yeah. And in Second Corinthians, it talks about that, what you said. And it says that God, supplies the seed and stuff,
yep.
and bread for food. And he says he'll multiply the seed, and increase the harvest
Mm.
for us. And I think that we have to realize you're just really blocking yourself when you
Yeah.
don't want to be generous. You are holding back. And I think sometimes there's people I know, and they're like, oh, why does this person keep getting this? Or why would this person? It's like, yeah, because they're planting seed. They're
Mhm.
really generous,
Yep.
and they're just, trusting God, and God's just, bringing it back, and it just keeps coming back. And once again, as we're closing up, we're talking about time, talents, like you said, your words. Words are so powerful. What
Yes.
are you using your words for? It's so powerful. And finances. And so being generous, and there's a lot more we could get into, but I think that's just really good, and just a good reminder to look at in this season of what does it actually mean to be generous. And um, it talks about in Second Corinthians that we have to. It says each one must give as he has decided in his heart, not reluctantly or under compulsion. And so um, you just talk with God and see what he says in your heart. And so you're not doing it like reluctantly, like, oh
Right.
man, I don't want to have to give, because now your heart's not in the right place. You're not going
Mhm.
to get anything back. It's just going to be, but under compulsion, it's like also like, oh well, the Salvation Army needs all this money, so it's like, well, I gotta give, and it's like,
Right.
that's not either. So
Right.
it's, there's two sides of the fence. But when it comes directly from your heart, where God, that's where God's going to speak to you about doing things, it's easier to, make that decision. I'm going to give. And And so I just believe as we do that, we're going to have a good Christmas season. You won't feel guilty for not
Yeah.
getting this person a gift, but you got this person, or this person's gift was $100, this person was 10 or whatever.
Right.
That stuff won't bother you, because you know, hey, I'm going to be generous. What God tells me to do, I'm going to do. I know my God will provide. I know if he tells me to get rid of my car, or he tells me to do whatever he tells me to do, I know there's a reason why. I know he'll take care
Yeah.
of me. And so, yeah.
Yeah. And going back to, just even just the simple things, complimenting some stranger, if you like a shirt they're wearing or their shoes or whatever it is, you don't know what that person is going through. And for you to say something kind to that stranger could change their entire world. Really, it could. And especially whenever we're going through this holiday season where people are stressed, people are depressed, people are anxious, be just smiling at someone, holding the door open for someone, picking up something that you saw on the floor, getting something for someone off of the shelf. I did that for someone at HEB a few weeks back. She was just not tall enough to get it. And I saw her trying to get one, and she couldn't, because it was a couple rows back. So she just decided to get the one below it where she could reach. And I said, are you wanting that one? And she said, oh yeah. And I said, let me get it for you. So I grabbed it and she put the other one back. And then apparently there was a guy behind me and I didn't even know. And he saw that and he said, God bless you for doing that. And I was like, thanks, I'm taller, so I don't mind helping people whenever I get the opportunity.
Alicia's 6'6", if y'all didn't realize.
No, definitely not. But
Yeah.
I have to stand on the shelves sometimes to reach the stuff in the back. But whenever I'm able to help, and so you don't know who it may impact behind you.
Yep.
That guy could have just been thinking that there's nothing good in this world, and why should I even be here if there's nothing going to be,
Yep.
and then sees that, and that could just change. I don't know. I'm going to an extreme, but you just never know the impact that it could have on. That could have been that lady's last. It could have been the cheaper one up top, and she didn't have the money to get the more expensive one. Whatever.
Yeah.
So just be sensitive to even those little things that seem so little and, insignificant to you could be something that changes their life for that person. So yeah, just think about that while you're going through.
Amen. Preach it, sister.
There was my contribution. Yes. But anyways, I think that's all that we have for you guys tonight. We wanted to say thank you so much for joining us. We love having you guys here. We hope that this blessed you. We hope that you have a wonderful holiday season, no matter if you tune in the rest of the time or not. We just hope that you have a great one. And like this video, share it with someone you think that it may help or it may bless. And yeah, we hope to see you guys again next week. Bye.
Bye.